Hello, I'm Dr. Miranda. I'd like to have a brief discussion concerning global labor relations, and this is, of course, in tandem with the issues in international business course. Global labor relations, automatically what comes to mind is, of course, strikes and unions and labor laws and regulations, right? If you talk to management often, there is a deep distrust and dislike of labor, particularly organized labor. I remember the other day, I was having a conversation with fellow professionals. We were discussing the role of unions now in the 21st century, particularly in the United States of America. Now, this is just my opinion. It's not something that I force on anyone, and you are free to disagree with it, you know. But the gist of the conversation went that labor unions had its place. They had its place, at the apex of the Industrial Revolution. They had its apex in the ongoing progressive movement towards a more just industrial and labor practices. Labor unions have really accomplished much good here in this country, predominantly the United States of America, and we applauded the great work that unions have done, and there is a place still for unions. However, we also came to the conclusion that in many cases, for example, government unions, um, teacher unions and other type of unions, is that they actually stand in the way of a business expansion. They stand in the way of equality. They stand in the way of an employee's production. So, there is good and there is bad. There's room for improvement, and sometimes there's room for dissolution. And, which is which? Well, that's why we are in university and we present the information. And as a professor, I always respect my students' right to make up their own mind. I provide the arguments, usually on both sides, because I believe that is the best way to promote learning. One-sided learning is not a good thing, right? You always want to provide, the different sides of the coin, so to speak. Now, labor relations in the United States are very, very complex. Again, I love to use the word complexity because it is the truth. Sometimes we try to have a reductionist approach to everything, right? Just like biology and just like scientists, predominantly scientists who disbelieve in creation or have no belief in God. They're always trying to reduce everything um, to a more palatable, quote unquote, palatable logical explanation or a biological explanation, a geological explanation, or is trying to reduce very complex things into bite size, and that doesn't work, right? Because, as wonderful as science is, and I love science, I have no problems with science. My wife is a STEM professional, and we embrace science. But what I don't appreciate is that there are certain things the science cannot answer. Certain things such as God, the spiritual reality, right? So again, just like some of these people try to reduce weighty things, big concepts into bite-sized things that their minds can understand, we also try to reduce the complexity into 2.5 minute reporting that we see sometimes in the news. It doesn't work. We have to do our homework. We have to talk to union leaders. We have to talk to management. We have to see their points of view. We have to consider how our laws and how our regulations and the decisions that we take, how that's going to impact labor, how that's going to impact management. So we have to sit down together, we have to talk, we have to do research, and we have to make solid, good decisions. Now, as a business leader expanding abroad, okay, you are going to have to be very cognizant of labor relations. not only here in the United States of America, but also abroad. Because, for example, I'll take Brazil. Brazil is very labor friendly. What does it mean? It's not business friendly. Believe me, they have humongous tax rates for corporations. They have labor laws which basically, whenever you hire someone, you need a lawyer, to enforce what you want to happen in your own business. So there's no balance between the needs of the business and the needs of the employee. Okay, so it's very convoluted. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the Brazilian Constitution. I was reading that. That's a huge document. I mean, it's like reading through the book of Revelation because I was just seeing red. I'm like, what is going on? They actually enshrine labor law, particularly labor law, spelling item by item in their constitution. Okay, so that means to have a change in labor practice, you need a constitutional amendment, for crying out loud. And no wonder things don't get done in Brazil. And I'm speaking as a Brazilian citizen because I have dual citizenship. I am an American citizen and I also have citizenship back in my homeland. Now, you have to understand how the labor laws and the labor relations are going to impact your business, particularly your international business. Okay, you're going to be dealing a lot. Let's say you're manufacturing. There are local labor laws which has to do and very applicable to manufacturing. If you're going to provide certain services, there are labor laws and regulations that regulate those things. If you're going to do import and export, definitely there's going to be labor laws, the people who unload the goods and the products. Now, hopefully you are dealing with a company that takes care of most of that headache. Okay, but there has to be a global labor relation component and understanding. Now, there are issues, right? You're going to have to deal with strikes, right? Not necessarily strike against your company, but how a strike elsewhere in the country is affecting. A labor strike will affect your operation. How will you deal? Let's say you are a manufacturer of goods. And the health of your company depends not only on your foreign expansion, but your home market, on a very speedy, on a very efficient movement of goods, of transports. But what happens if the truck drivers go on strike? How are you going to deal with that? Right? Because now you can't move your goods unless you're dealing with trains. Okay? But, these are very simple examples that I use, but these are things that as a international business executive, you will have to be cognizant of. Now, remember this, okay? Labor relations are very important, particularly when it comes to international expansion, right? You will have to deal with time off issues, greater employee security. Your employees abroad will need to feel secure, as well as the employees from your home market, okay? Better work-life balance. And of course, there are different expectations of host country employees versus U.S. employees, okay? Now, you will also have to deal with unions abroad, okay? Particularly when it comes to Latin America. Most Latin Americans now are heavily unionized, and these are things that you're going to have to deal with, okay? Again, now, this, of course, will come very handy if you have consultants on the ground that will help you deal with these local issues, okay, with local labor laws. That's why, again, there is a linkage to having a very excellent HR executive in your company abroad, okay? Have those resources that you can tap into because you will have to deal with labor. Okay, and here's the thing. You don't want to be exploitive labor. You want to project the best of yourself, the best of your faith, the best of because you're not only representing, again, your faith, you're not only representing yourself, but you're representing your company, but at the same time, you're representing the labor expectations and the laws of your headquarter companies, right? For example, in banking and in most companies, well, in all companies, international bribes are forbidden, verboten, right? Can't do it, right? We have tough bribery laws in the United States of America, and that is expected also and applicable to international business. Now, there is a loophole that unfortunately is so vague that it tells you don't do it, don't bribe anyone overseas when you're doing business with them, but at the same time, you can bribe them if you call them location expenses or something like that, right? At the same time, they're saying you will be penalized for doing that, and at the same time, they're saying you won't. The best thing, don't do it, right? Don't do it at all. It's the ethical thing to do, is the right thing to do, but you are representing your country, and you're representing the best of your country, and you're representing the best of your company, okay? So when you're conducting business overseas and you open a manufacturing plant or distributors or whatever, you treat your employees with respect. You create an environment where there's a dynamic, there's an excitement in that company, right? Where they come to work every day, they're happy to be there because they're being paid well, right? The company's taking care of them. They have a sense that you care for them. That just because you are a foreign executive, right, doesn't mean that you're going to, they don't feel that you're so aloof out there in the clouds, and you're the American who's going to be the great expansionist and the empire builder, and you're going to exploit their labor. No, you treat them kindly. You treat them with respect, with dignity. You respect the local labor laws, right? And when a local labor law for it doesn't make sense, then you have your people work with the legislatures. I'm not talking about bribing, okay? I'm talking about, let your voice be heard through your employees of the changes that will help your company and will help your employees. But these are some things that you're going to have to be very cognizant of, because also remember, there's a cultural element when it comes to foreign labor. Here in the U.S., we're often very mechanical when it comes to labor. Sometimes, I have felt in certain companies, I'm just a number. I'm just, a punch card. In foreign countries, there's a different dynamic at work. And not all foreign countries do this, by the way. You will find this in most Latin countries. And because we tend to be a little bit more, the word is not humane, but human geared. We're geared towards more personal relationships. If a foreign employee, let's say in Brazil, feels that you are taking good care of them, that you are working for them, that there is a decent partnership, there's a dynamic partnership between the American and, let's say, the Brazilian branch of the company, and that you care for them, and that you go to bat for them, and that you are there to promote not only the company's best interest, but their also best interest, there will be a relationship that is built, that is very solid, that the employee will always give of their best to you. Why? Because there is an element of loyalty, because there's a relationship that is built that we really don't see here in the States. Okay, I've only seen this kind of loyalty on a company. I forgot, it was a company that built boots, and that company, the management and the labor worked hand in hand. The company paid for colleges for the employees' children, for the employees themselves. The company really poured of themselves into the employees. Very productive, very happy labor force. But unfortunately, the company hit a very, very rocky financial situation. It got so bad that they were looking into becoming insolvent. Well, the employees got together. You know what they did? They donated their vacation time. They even worked for 2 months free. And during that time, the company got back to profitability the company is thriving even more. Why? Again, there was a beautiful relationship between labor and between management. Okay, the same thing can be replicated abroad. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and you have a beautiful day. Now go out there and make a great difference in this world.